Hello and welcome to Switch Your Money On with me, Susanna Streeter, Head of Money and Markets here at Hargreaves Lansdown.
And me, Sarah Coles, Head of Personal Finance. And it is great to be back in the studio. Actually, for me, it is also a nice surprise to be back in the studio because while I was off a few days off, I kept getting loads of scam messages looking as if I was looking for work and there were these scammers who were trying to encourage me to pay them. So I was quite worried that my pass might not work when I came back into the building. But it's all fine, it's all fine.
There is so much going around at the moment. Of course, we've had these really high-profile cyber attacks on the likes of Marks and Spencer and Co-op and Harrods and other retailers as well. And of course, all of these warnings that individuals really have to be on their guard right now because of the level of activity out there. So that's what we are going to be delving in today in this episode. We're going to be focusing on cyber attacks, but also scams and fraud and how you can protect yourself. And I'm really pleased to say we have Will Gutt, who's a technology correspondent, who is going to join us on the podcast. Will, it's been a super busy time for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I've never known a time like this where we've had so many different stories relating to cyber attacks. It's a broad field too, so we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do to protect yourself. We're going to talk about the threats that are out there, and slightly terrifyingly, and don't have nightmares, we're going to talk about what's coming next as well.
Well, that sounds very cheery, but we also have Helen Morrissey here, who's our Head of Retirement Analysis, and you're going to tell us a bit about what's happening to pensioners in this sort of space.
Absolutely. I mean, scammers, you really do target pensioners, so I'm really looking forward to talking about some of the key things that people need to be aware of to keep their pensions safe.
But you can't have missed, can you, what's been going on at Marks and Spencer? If you are a frequent shopper at Marks and Spencer, as I am, I particularly like the deli treats and their wine selection. There have been gaps on shelves. I popped in the other day and there are still ongoing problems, it seems, in some stores, or perhaps it was the fact that there was this big rush on products due to the lovely sunny weather we've been having. But we do know that their website is still down in terms of online ordering. You can browse online, but you can't actually make orders online. This is all stemming from this cyber attack that hit the retailer back on the Easter weekend, and it is still continuing. And we have heard in the latest update that actually it is not expecting online orders to resume until July. So this is a real headache for the companies. The company's estimating it could cost it £300 million.
And I suppose the problem you have is that they've spent so much money building up that side of the business, particularly after the lockdowns when, the online became so important. And now, obviously, they're losing all that business. So it must be really difficult for the company. Really
difficult. But actually, Marks and Spencer is coming from a pretty resilient position because we've had its annual results out showing underlying pre-tax profits of a rise of 22%, just over, and sales overall up 6.1%. So it's come from a position of strength, and it will be hoping that over the longer term, because as this really hit the first start of its new financial year, that things will improve, and it's hoping to mitigate as well some of the disruption and the impact, that 300 million by insurance, but also maybe cost efficiencies elsewhere. We'll have to see how all of this plays out. And it does remain to be seen just what will be the reputational damage for the company.
Because I was going to say, it's not just Marks and Spencer, though, is it? I mean, this is a problem for a lot of retailers. It seems to be something that's spreading as well.
Marks and Spencer certainly isn't the first and will not be the last, I'm sure, retailers or companies affected by such incidences. You have Co-op, which has been affected as well. It's been facing supply chain issues. Harrods appeared to have been attacked. Adidas as well, and not just here in the UK, but we're hearing of some of these attacks are spreading around the world as well. Over recent years, many other companies have had to deal with incidences of this kind, although it is fair to say, I think that Marks and Spencer has been going on for quite a long time. But yes, it is a reputational issue, it's a trust issue, because of course it's when people's data are stolen by hackers that can really cause the trust issue. And at least with Marks and Spencer, they do say that no usable card details were accessed. But they are urging people to change their passwords, even though passwords weren't accessed either. But it's just a pretty prudent move anyway to make sure that you change your password when you log on.
Mm-hmm. And I guess, it's the fabulous world of passwords. I know I'm supposed to have at least 6,000 of them and they get changed on a daily basis. And every time I change it, it says it can't match any of my previous 6. So obviously in my head I've got
It is
4,000.
such a headache, isn't it? It really is. But I mean, I think, Will tell us later why it's so important.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, there are lots of different ways in which these things can affect, people who are just, every day trying to do their shopping. But there's a whole other world of scams. So there's the figures that have come out recently just about in terms of how scams have changed. So we've seen a drop in the number of investment scams, for example, but we've seen a really big rise in the amount of money that's been taken. And they will sometimes use the names of reputable companies in order to take advantage of people. And one of the ones that we've seen emerging has been this idea of taking advantage of actually Peter Hargreaves and for Stephen Lansdown. And what they've done is they've put these sort of social media posts out. One of them is actually deep fake, which is quite an odd thing to see. And they're pretending to be from the founders of Hargreaves Lansdown, and they're pretending that they've set up these WhatsApp groups in order to try and encourage people to sign up to the groups. Now, what these scams tend to be is a sort of a pump and dump scheme. So they will once you've actually signed up, they'll use that contact detail to get in touch and get you invest in things that really have very little value. That'll pump up the price because they'll push more people into it. And then at the point at which they've, it's gone up, they will then sell and cut and run. So you'll be left with something that's, pretty much worthless, and they will have made a load of money off the back of it. So it's with something that's very sort of key at the moment is we're really saying it's very important to know that neither Peter or Stephen are on social media. They don't have any WhatsApp groups, and neither does HL. So if you see any of these
Important
things,
to stress that, literally no WhatsApp group,
Exactly.
official WhatsApp group from Hargreaves Lansdown.
so if you see any of these things online in any guise whatsoever, they are scams. Do not sign up to them.
And I think the issue is that as we go into the future, with the possibility for deep fakes to be made, so easily now, that we're going to see this more and more, I think, coming up. So let's bring in Will now. Will, you've been analysing these trends for quite some time, haven't you?
I have.
Where are we right now? Do you think we're kind of reaching a bit of a crisis point when it comes to these cyber attacks and people not quite knowing how to protect themselves?
We're at a difficult point in time, given that artificial intelligence and deep fakes are becoming so prolific. But we run a risk as a society of switching off when it comes to cybercrime because we hear about it so often. We hear about it all the time. It's like crying wolf. And the reality is there are so many different forms of cybercrime. Most of it at the moment is still people infecting your computer with malware. That's getting control of your device, trying to copy your bank details or get a view of what you're doing on the device. And others are finding themselves stuck in these ransomware situations, like the large retailers. Now, mostly it's businesses that are being targeted by those, but also people with large amounts of data are having that too. And what you talk about there with the deep fakes of your founders, I've seen those particular posts online, and it took me probably 10 to 15 seconds to work out they were completely fake.
And you're an expert.
Yes, and that's my point. I thought they were unusual, but I also know that sort of I figured, that might be something that one of them might have been doing. And you sort of find yourself in these situations, and what they do, these financial scams, most of them, like the fake WhatsApp messages from a friend in their hour of need, or your son or your grandkid at university, and they've lost their phone and they need a couple of £100 to get them through for the next few hours or whatever, for the next few days. They kind of get people when they least expect them. So you kind of have to have this lens of suspicion about you whenever you're operating online these days. It's feeling a bit more, I love the internet and I talk about the positive things about being online, but it does start feeling a bit more like the Wild West if you kind of stop and look at the level of threat that we've now just become used to as a society.
I've seen at tech conferences just how easy it is to create avatars. I've had a go myself at a number of conferences. You can play games online when you create dolls of yourself or replicas of yourself. What part is social media playing, do you think, in kind of encouraging this?
Well, social media is the vessel to share that stuff. And just the last few days on LBC, the radio station where I work, I managed to trick a presenter I've worked with for 15 years with a deep fake version of me in an interview. It's somebody I speak to several times a week, and rather than speaking over my microphone, I played in a file of a deep fake cloned version of me, which I was able to make with a couple of hours of audio that I had saved and $20 a month through a company. These are legally made for people who are doing voiceovers and those kinds of things. But you can game these systems, and you can, in the example of your founders, people have probably taken audio of their interviews from places and put them into systems such as this. And the deepfake video stuff, for example, in just the last few days, Google has announced a new form, a new system, which is called VEO3, VEO number 3. And this is not just a text-to-speech artificial intelligence, it's a text-to-video artificial intelligence too. And it looks real. 6 months ago, if you put somebody eating pasta into and asked an AI video model to generate it, you'd create something that looked nightmarish. It didn't look real. 6 months on, it looks like a human being. The eye movements, the mouth movements, all of this stuff now is moving on so quickly. And that's what leads into the world of scams. And social media is rocket fuel for these scams. We've all seen the Stephen Bartlett ones. We've all seen the money saving expert ones. It's easy for public figures to get used in these things because they're the types of people that society takes advice from. And all you need is a handful of people to be suckered in.
And I guess we've got to just take it on trust that we are actually listening to you right now, rather than an AI version of you.
I'm waving at you, so it is me, I can promise. I'm real.
I mean, in terms then of because it's got more difficult, because these things are more sophisticated, is it more difficult to spot, and what should people look out for?
It's getting much harder to understand or spot. What you still might see in artificial intelligence models right now, and I'm talking to you in June 2025, I'm sure it'll be very different, but even by the end of this year, you might notice a certain lack of enthusiasm or monotony in the voice. It might sound almost rhythmic in the way that the computer or the artificial intelligence is intended to do it. The other dead giveaway with AI on most forms of video that are used for deepfakes currently are the mouth, how the mouth moves and the eyes move. They look a bit disconnected. They use the phrase uncanny valley in Hollywood to describe this kind of stuff. So it doesn't feel completely connected. Also, some of these deepfake videos that you see, they sound like they've swallowed a dictionary. So you sort of find yourself in an unusual situation where they're using very deep, strange technical words to describe something that could be done really simple by a human being. So it's just about taking time and not instantly clicking, yeah, I'm going to sign up to that the moment you hear about an offer.
Now, you mentioned earlier about how some people are being targeted by texts from grandchildren asking for money. Is there a risk here, do you think, that actually videos of people's children could be used and sent as though they are asking for money? And so should we be behaving a bit like we have to behave now when you have a text from, it could be your bank, but you have to make sure that you call the bank, you get through to the right person before taking any action at all?
I would definitely do that now. Very recently, I was just about to go into a studio and do something live. It was something quite nerve-wracking for me. It wasn't something I'd done before, but I received a message from my business bank and it looked genuine, and it asked me for some details for something. And I was in the middle of some banking situation, and I thought, oh God, I'm going to need to do this now. It was only when I stopped and realized that the email opened with "Hello, dear." And I don't think my bank manager knows me that well. So, I don't think that was a genuine situation. But the challenge you now face is for all those people maybe in foreign countries where English isn't their first language who are trying these scams, artificial intelligence is going to make these kind of grammatical errors and these things that look a bit fishy because they don't read or scan correctly. All of that stuff is going to disappear. And that is the challenge. And we're already finding that in the same way as reputable businesses are training artificial intelligence for good work, criminals are training artificial intelligence for bad work. And we're going to be in a weird situation in the next few years where the best protection against deepfakes and AI is artificial intelligence running on your system to tell you whether or not something that you're seeing is real. We have almost got to the stage. You always used to say, you always used to believe what you saw in a picture, etc., etc. But it's easy to fake this stuff now, and that's the challenge. I keep having the words of my 76-year-old dad going through my head constantly, which is there's no such thing as a free lunch. And like that is my mantra in the back of my head whenever I get a business opportunity or something click through that looks too good to be true, because it probably still is.
I mean, I guess that is one of the points that, the advice that still holds true, that has always held true for scams. So any contact that's out of the blue is something that you should be really sceptical about. And bear in mind that, I suppose that anything on social media is actually out of the blue, that, don't think those people are your friends. And I guess that whole, if it feels like it could be too good to be true, then it probably is. It's probably a scam. And I guess starting from that position that anything could be a scam is going to be the thing that stands you in best stead for protecting yourself.
Importantly there, just coming back in on that, some of the most sensible people I know in the world, academics, professors, all kinds of really intelligent people, they're the ones I've seen sharing the Land Rover scams on Facebook. Those are the ones I've seen recommending investment portfolios and advice and, information that they wouldn't typically be showing. And that's the thing. It's about maintaining your level of common sense when you're using the internet. If you don't have common sense off of the internet, you really are screwed on the internet in 2025. So you just have to have very much a present focus, because people are out there to try and get your information, your data, your money.
Will, thank you so much. It's been great having you on the podcast. I think you might keep us awake a little bit at night, but maybe we should all have a big dose of reality about what is out there and how we should best protect ourselves. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Anytime you want to talk about this sort of stuff, I'm always here.
Thank you. Well, another person who can really help us out with how pensioners in particular, those approaching retirement age, should be on alert and should protect themselves is Helen Morrissey. Of course, you've been looking at lots of potential investment scams that are out there. I mean, most recently I've been reading about a whiskey barrel investment scam. People have been losing thousands of money they've saved up through their lives. It's a real issue, isn't it? What should be people looking out for?
Yeah, it's a massive issue, Susanna, because when you think about it, your pension is one of the, if not the biggest asset that you have. So this means that scammers have it, really in their crosshairs. And I describe scammers as shapeshifters in that they change their tactics depending on what the environment is. So, as you say, your whiskey barrel investment there is being a prime example. But another example I would say is when the pension freedom and trace reforms came in some years back, which basically opened up how people could access their pension. And they were so quick off the mark, these scammers, in targeting pensioners with offers of free pension reviews, investment scams that either encouraged them to transfer their pensions or at least a portion of them, which were then kind of whisked away, and people lost large chunks of their pensions and their retirement savings. So, I mean, if we look at what common signs of a pension scam might be, some of it goes back to what Will was saying earlier, such thing as a free lunch, and what you were saying also, Sarah, that, if you're offered, investments out of the blue, amazing returns, if it seems too good to be true, then it often is. You need to have your guard up there. There's a lot going on. Use of phrases like pension liberation, using loopholes to kind of, enable you to get hold of your pensions early, for instance, are things that you really need to be careful of. So a really key thing is that if you've got a pension at the moment, you can't access your pension until at least the age of 55. That's going up to 57 in 2028. But one really common pension investment scam is, we can help you get hold of your pension that bit earlier. And what tends to happen is the pension, money gets taken out, you get clobbered with a tax bill, and they've gone off with your money.
I suppose one of the protections that has been put in place is the rules around cold calling about pensions. So now that it's been outlawed, that if someone's calling you out of the blue with any of these things that you talk about, that is definitely a scam.
Yeah, that's a really, really important point, Sarah. And as you say, we need to make sure that more and more people are aware of these cold calling rules. And as you say, it's if something is out of the blue, no financial advisor is going to call you out of the blue. No financial advisor is going to pressure you into making an investment decision. They would always want to talk you through it, let you kind of make your decisions in your own time. And if there is any kind of high pressure sales tactics going on, then that's a real kind of warning light. What I would also say to people as well is that often these scammers, they rely on you being polite. and not putting the phone down on them or not terminating contact with them. So what I would say is, don't worry about that. They don't care about you. They don't care about taking your pension money. And if someone is making you feel pressured, it's your money. You do what you want with it. Do not think twice about terminating a phone call, stopping email contact with somebody, letter contact with somebody. And if you think that an elderly relative as well might have been targeted, please keep an eye out for these signs as well.
And I suppose one of the sort of telltale signs is they don't just put you under pressure, they might tell you to keep it secret because it's like a special deal just for you. Are there any ways that you can kind of protect particularly maybe vulnerable older people that that you worried they might be being told to keep it a secret? Is that the sort of thing that people can delve into and find out more about?
I mean, I think the key thing is to keep those communication channels open. If you see them kind of, maybe being a little bit secretive about money, then that's a little bit of a red flag there for you to try and delve. Don't push people into telling you things. You might upset them. And again, it is their money kind of thing. But keep those communications options open and just let people know as well that sometimes shame comes into a lot of this as well. People get scammed not just in pensions, across the board, and they're too embarrassed to tell anybody. Always let your loved ones know that if something has happened, they can tell you and you can try and help them to sort it out if that's possible.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about the whole kind of, if it seems too good to be true, then it probably is. I suppose one of the other things people find it difficult to know is what too good to be true looks like. So are there sort of certain rules of thumb you can use if someone's saying, I've got this fabulous investment for your pension? Are there certain things that can give away that it might be too good to be true?
I think you've got to look at, if they're offering things like guaranteed returns, that's always a little bit of a something to be wary of. If they're saying that they can massively outstrip the investment performance that you're getting in your pension, then again, that's also a bit of a red flag there because, within your workplace pension, for instance, you're there with a reputable provider, they're putting, their best, their best endeavours into getting the best from your pension as possible. If someone's coming out there saying that they can comfortably outstrip that, then you need to be careful.
I suppose it's those two things together. So it's the guarantee side and the high returns, because obviously you've got the way it always works is if you take a risk in order to try and get better returns, you cannot have low risk, high returns. No. That's a scam.
Absolutely.
And much of what you're saying as well, Helen, really plays into investments in general, investment scams in general. If something looks too good to be true, it probably is. Complex investment structures as well could be another warning light. This promise of really high returns for low risk, all of that should start to see red light warning lights flashing.
Absolutely, and as you say, that method of communication as well. Bear in mind, a financial advisor or a pension provider isn't going to text you out of the blue with an amazing investment offer. It's bearing in mind things like that, sending you a random email. You've got to be aware of these things.
And if people are approached, by someone they think, it's probably a scam, presumably they can go to a reputable financial advisor instead. But are there any other options for where they can actually get full help?
So as you say, you've got financial advice for those people who feel like they need it and can afford it. Then you've also got guidance services such as PensionWise, which is government backed. It's not financial advice, it is guidance, but you can go to them if you're over the age of 50 and kind of say, I've been contacted by this person, saying this and this, what do you think? And I'm sure that they would be able to help you. If you have any concerns that you have been approached by a fraudster, then don't be scared to report it. Go to Action Fraud, because the more detail that they can get together on these things, the better.
And presumably 101 for the police as well, just to report it to them.
101, absolutely, yeah. If you feel that you are being really put under pressure, really do get the police involved if you feel you need to.
It's really great to know that there is that impartial advice available from the government that PensionWise you're referring to, Helen. So thank you very much. We have just about got time, I think, for our fun fact of the week, although should we really be having that much fun now we're talking about scams? It all seems pretty serious, Sarah, but I'm sure you've got something up your sleeve.
Well, this is the thing. How do you have fun with scams? Obviously you can't. So I've kind of weirdly gone down the impersonations route with a really, really tenuous link.
Okay.
So there is a celebrity out there who, tenuous link is not really an impersonation, let's just bear with me here, but when they go to work, they take a pantomime horse costume with them in order to cheer things up when it's quiet at work, and they pop this costume on and it's hilarious. So who do you think the celebrity is? Is it Kate Winslet, Kate Beckinsale, or Katie Price?
Well, do you know what? When we first started to say impersonations, I was thinking it would be Ariana Grande, because her impersonations are just incredible, but that she's singing without a pantomime horse costume on. So we know it's not her, and she wasn't one of the three anyway. So Kate Winslet, Kate Beckinsale, or Katie Price. I think it's something that Kate Winslet would do. I've just got that feeling. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It could be Kate Beckinsale. I can't imagine Katie Price in a pantomime horse outfit.
So what do you think, Helen?
So I kind of agree with Susanna in that I don't think Katie Price has a pantomime horse outfit at home. I really don't.
She's very into horses. I don't know why it's not a believable.
Well, you know, maybe it doesn't go quite that far to the pantomime side of things.
I wouldn't say that she's an actress either. But anyway.
True. And I could well imagine Kate Winslet wanting to do something like that, but then I did watch an interview with Kate Beckinsale a few years back, and she seems to be quite the practical joker.
Okay.
So I think this could be right up her street, I think.
You are completely right, yes. Apparently it's something she bought right at the beginning of her career, and she's been doing it ever since.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, Sarah, that means that you have to bring in a pantomime horse outfit.
I would be delighted.
Cheers.
So next time you see me, I shall be half horse.
Well, I think that's time to wrap up on that thought. Before we go though, I have to say that this was recorded on the 2nd of June 2025, and all information was correct at the time of recording.
Nothing in this podcast is personal advice. You should seek advice if you're not sure what's right for you. Tax rules can change and benefits depend on individual circumstances.
Thank you so much for listening. We will be back again soon. Goodbye.
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 Nay!